What up, y'all? Peace, peace, peace. Peace, love, and light to the collective. As promised, this is part two to how the Connecticut UBN was formed and the role I played in that. And I said that in part two, I would pick up where I left off, where I got shipped out of state. I basically got shipped out of state to the United States Penitentiary. And I landed in Lewisburg, and then I ended up going to Leavenworth ultimately. But that's what this video is pretty much is gonna be based about. Now let me backtrack a little bit. I'm gonna backtrack and go back to part one. So basically, and let me give a shout out first of all. Let me give a shout out to some of the brothers that was there with everything that went on in the Connecticut prison system. Now, it's not gonna be the same story as the New York story, as far as like, why the New York UBN came about and the history that we was given. Connecticut was similar but a little different. Um, the Latin Kings and the Nietas were prevalent in Connecticut, but Connecticut had already formed, the blacks had already formed gangs to combat the Latin Kings and the Nietas. And those gangs were the ECB, Nation, Brotherhood, so there was black gangs that went against the Latin Kings out in Connecticut. So there was really no need for blood to come to Connecticut and basically take over the system like it did, because the system was pretty much in check. When with the prison that I was in, the Supermax, the level 5 Supermax, when that was built in the early 90s, what Connecticut did was they sent all the gang members to Northern. So they pretty much had combated their gang problem. Connecticut was is one of the most passive systems in the United States of America as far as prison goes. So they already had a hold on it. Connecticut is one of those places, if you get into three physical altercations, if you get into three fights in the Connecticut prison system, they'll send you to chronic discipline and they'll lock you down for a year. Um, when I was in juvenile, when I did my first bid, I did half of that bid in chronic discipline. And then it was first it was in Walker, then it got shipped to Northern, the Supermax. So Connecticut already had a strategic system to control any inmate that kept getting into physical altercations. Connecticut doesn't allow you. Like whereas Rikers Island, right? You could get into a fight in Rikers Island. You could even cut somebody in Rikers Island. If you get into that altercation, they'll just simply move you, and then you wait to get sentenced and get your Bing time. So you could be waiting to go to the box for a stabbing or a cutting or a fight or whatever. You could just get moved from building to building or crib to crib while you're getting in a physical altercation. You don't go right to the box. Connecticut is not the same system. You get in a fight in Connecticut, you go into the box that night. Pennsylvania is like that. The feds is like that. New York it has a weird system. Like you could really rock out in New York, especially Rikers Island. I mean, not upstate. Upstate is kind of the same too. You go right to the box. But Rikers Island had this weird system where you could get away with stuff or wait. It's like you commit a crime on the street and you waiting to get sentenced. Connecticut wasn't like that. So I'm not gonna sit here and pretend and say like, we came together in Connecticut as the UBN to pretty much combat the Latin Kings or the police or nothing like that, because that wasn't really the case. You know what I mean? I had gotten an altercation with somebody that had nothing to do with the situation. Then we were sent to Northern. Then another situation occurred. And once one situation occurred with the brother Ease, my son Ease, um, when that happened, because I was in communication with so many homies, and Connecticut was thirsty for the blood thing. Like, like I said, I blame Dipset and a lot of music, which indoctrinated the Connecticut brothers. And then you had a lot of influx of brothers coming from New York out to Connecticut. So when they came out to Connecticut, they brought that swag with them. So while I was sitting in Northern, my legend began to grow. The assaults on the COs and in the leadership role, guys from Connecticut didn't have nobody in New York that they could reach out to for the most part and get paperwork from. I'm not saying everybody. There's people, Hartford, New Haven, and Bridgeport, who might have knew somebody personally, you know what I'm saying, in New York who could have got them right. But I'm saying overall, overall. So when that name when blood came about in Connecticut and brothers wanted to get what we call right and wanted to get paperwork, I was one of the brothers that people would reach out to. I used to get letters every day from dudes from New Haven and Bridgeport who wanted to get quote unquote right. And at the time, I was young. I mean, I was 21, 21, 22 years old. I was a kid myself. And I was overwhelmed, with the support and overwhelmed with, people wanting to be right, so to speak. And I was sitting in a box and I was getting stuff from Robo Just, may he rest in peace. I was able to get literature and stuff like that through the mail. So I was one of the only people who was actually getting their hands on real live paperwork. So because I can disseminate this paperwork, that's what made people cling to me. And then a lot of the Bloods knew at the time that when I was out, you got to remember this is 2001. When I was out in 2000, I was on K Slay with OG Mac. Me, OG Mac, Hell Rel, and Pure Blood. We was on a series of songs. We had like two songs when we was getting that J.O. Felony. This is when OG Mac, the founder of Blood, was beefing with J.O. Felony out west. So this is fresh off of that. So when I came to prison, you had a lot of dudes from Connecticut who actually heard those songs. So they knew that I knew OG Mac. They knew that I was from the neighborhood and I ran around with OG Mac. And then on top of that, Hal Rell began to, his career began to take off with Dipset in '02. So not only did I have the notoriety for being around OG Mac, but people knew that I was responsible for bringing Hal Rell out to New London when we was out there. So the combination of both and the fact that I was sitting in Northern and the fact that people knew I had been in Northern for years, the Supermax, and I was controlling things in Northern, and I was the one, sanctioning the war between the Latin Kings and the UBN in Connecticut. So I was getting an influx of letters, and me being a kid, I was sucking it all up. You know what I'm saying? I was embracing my role as this leader. So I sat in the box and I read, Revolutionary Suicide, Seize the Time by Bobby Seale, so many books, man. Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver, Soledad Brothers, and stuff like that. Blood in My Eyes by George Jackson. The list goes on and on. So I'm sitting in the box, I'm reading all these revolutionary books, and I'm calling the police fascists, and I had this revolutionary mind state. So I was fully embracing this blood thing, this Black Panther thing, this brotherly love over oppression and destruction. Like I was fully indoctrinated, and I was a kid. You know what I mean? And this wasn't my first time. I'll get into that later, but what one must understand too is I had a calling on my life. So these leadership roles that I was thrust in, like even taking over the neighborhood back in in 2000, 2001, or even before then, back in 93, 92, starting a gang called SUA, Stick Up Assassins, in the whole neighborhood. Anybody from Weeks 240, they'll tell you, all the kids, my generation and younger, they was all, jacking that we was SUA, Stick Up Assassins. I literally made that gang up. So to give you a little history on myself, I was always thrusted into this role of leadership without even realizing it because there was a calling on my life. And even when I went to this Christian halfway house after I got out years later, and the Christian brothers used to tell me, brother, you have a calling on your life. You have a calling on your life. At that time, I didn't really fully understand or understand what they was actually saying. And it wasn't until, years later that I realized what that was and that I was leading people down the road of destruction and death. I was working hard for the devil. I was working hard for the enemy. You know what I mean? So I didn't realize my power. So at this time, I'm in this role of leadership, but I was using it all for the wrong purposes. And as I could sit here and say, that I kind of cracked the code as far as telling the Bloods not to leave the system, and I came up with that idea to basically break the system. That's what in turn got me kicked out of the state of Connecticut and sent to the United States Penitentiary with only 5 years. I only had 5 years, y'all. Normally, they don't send people they don't do an interstate compact with brothers. Normally, when they send people out of state, anybody from Connecticut, they'll tell you it's usually guys with 30 years or life. They don't really do that for guys with 5 years, but this was a unique situation. And I remember, before just to backtrack, I remember the day when they realized they was gonna send me out of state. I remember they came to me and asked me to squash the beef between the Latin Kings and the Bloods. And I'm young at the time, and I'm like, man, I wasn't jacking that they was making me the leader, right? So I was like, man, I don't got the power to tell nobody to do nothing. And they was like, well, just put the word out there and say that it's squashed, and we'll let you go back to population, because I was ticket free. I sat there ticket free. After a while, I didn't have a ticket at this time. I might have went 8 months without a ticket. I can't remember. It was a lengthy amount of time, but I still would have had to do another year and some change, right? So they was like, listen, you got all these months ticket free. If you squash the beef with the Bloods and tell them to stop it, we'll let you out. And again, at the time, this is before I cooperated with the government. I figured that was cooperation. So I was like, man, I don't got the power. Y'all saying it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Tell New York to squash it. Call somebody in New York and tell them to squash it. If they squash it, then it's squashed. But I don't have the power to do what y'all saying for me to do. And I remember it was an officer named Aldi. He was the head gang dude. And I remember he said, all right, all right. I remember him saying that. And in my head, I'm like, what can you do to me? I'm already in the box. I'm not going nowhere. You know what I'm saying? I know y'all not never letting me out of here. In my mind, I figured I was going to do my whole 5 years down there in AS, administrative segregation anyway, right? So I didn't know what they was cooking. And there was times they used to have these tours in the box in Northern. Northern is just like it's built exactly like ADX. And I read a pamphlet based on, solitary confinement and the color codes, how they color code the dorms. Well, not the dorms, but these units, and how AS was gray. They didn't use no paint. And then you went to phase two and it was like a turquoise almost. And then you went to phase three and it was pink. They basically, I read a book on solitary confinement and how they color code these these um these penitentiaries, to mess with you psychologically, even with the lights. In Northern, you couldn't control your own lights. You know what I mean? They turned the lights out when they wanted the light to go out, and you had this big old light shining down on you, and the light would hum too. It was a hum to it. And then I read these books, quiet weapons for silent weapons for silent wars, and figured out the psychological warfare that was going on. You know what I'm saying? But at this time, I was still, gang banging, and I didn't really take a lot of it seriously. So when he said, all right, you know what I mean? He had a plan for me. And they would do these tours, and it would be like maybe 10 white people in suits, maybe some psychologists. To this day, I don't know who they were. You know what I mean? And they would make tours, and they would look in the cell and they'd be like, oh, so they hang their clothes up right here, and this is what is this for? And they would be telling them, oh, well, this is for this and that. I felt like an animal on display. But I say that to say when they used to have these tours, there was always an individual in that tour that would just look at me. It would seem like they would be looking through me, right? And this happened more times in my life, and I begin to understand who this person was, and who this being was, and what this entity was about. But at the time, I didn't know it. I just had this eerie feeling. And when they would do these tours, it would be a whole bunch of white people, but there will always be one person that would just be looking at me. And it seemed like they would look through my soul, and I'll be in the cell, and I'll be calling a bunch of fascists pigs, and I was talking like I was a panther. You know what I'm saying? And and it was just one person that would just look at me. They would just look at me, just look at me like he was peering into my soul, right? And this happened too once I got sent away. But so yeah, as time went on or whatever, they shipped me out. One night they came to my cell, they was deep. The warden was there in his robe, and he was like, yo, you leaving. So what happened was they had put me on the interstate compact, and they shipped me out of state. And I landed in Lewisburg. And it wasn't just me though. There was five of us. They shipped five of us out. They shipped me and four other individuals. And these four other individuals, Imma tell y'all this now, Imma keep it a buck, I forgot about this part. Now, I had made up something called the BTL. I made up this thing called the BTL, and it was called the Connecticut Lineup. BT for Connecticut. Connecticut is CT, but I made it BT, right? The BTL, the Connecticut Lineup. I was super fool for this. But what the BTL was basically was because once they found out that I was getting information through the legal mail, we couldn't get no legal mail. My mail was being highly scrutinized. So for a couple of years, we wasn't in tune what was going on in New York. So there was a lot of changes that was going on. This is 2000 going into 2001. So, a lot of the sets in New York started leaving the UBN and stuff like that. I wasn't there. I got some of the history, so I don't want a bunch of them old blood niggas jumping in and telling me, "Oh, you don't know the history. We wasn't there." I don't care about the history. I'm telling you what was going on where I was at and how it affected me. So please don't come in here correcting me because I don't give a fuck about what was going on in New York. At that time I did. So you're not talking to the 20, the 21, 22-year-old me. You're talking to the 47-year-old me. So at that time, there was a lot of changes going on in New York. So as those changes was happening, we had an influx of New York bloods coming out to Connecticut that was bringing these changes. Oh, this is going on, that's going on. Anybody who been blood in New York, that's how it goes on in New York. You could be in the state and one jailer be doing one thing and another jailer be doing another thing. Rikers Island be doing one thing and up north would be doing something totally different. It's a chaotic structure anyway. Once the purpose was accomplished, with all these guys who still love blood and all of that, once the purpose was accomplished to like combat the Latin Kings attacks on us and to make the police on Rikers Island fear or respect blood, because they don't fear and respect blood up north. Them big crackers up north, they don't care nothing about blood. They don't care nothing about you. They will beat you up. They will kill unalive brothers, and they have, and go on about their day. And the Bloods in the beginning was like, banding together and combating it somewhat, but there was no big Attica riots. There was no officers getting unalived and none of that. It sounds good, but they may have had somewhat respect for the big homies, and they would, basically cater to the big homies to pass word to keep the little homies or the wars at a certain extent. So there came a level of respect, but overall, that's their system and it's still their system. The police still run that system. The Bloods never took over the system. The biggest gangs still run it to this day, and they ran it the entire time. We just gained a little bit respect for them. I don't have to be there to know that. I didn't have to had to been there to know that. But anyway, so as these brothers kept coming out to Connecticut, things was changing. So you had Bloods beefing with other Bloods because they saying, sex, money, murder is not a part of the U no more. 5'9" is not a part of the U. This is what's happening, and this is what's going on. And there was a lot of back and forth. So what I did, because we didn't have no access, we didn't have no paperwork, I made up my own lineup, y'all. Yeah, I did. I ain't gonna lie, I did. And I put all these brothers on the lineup. I gave them status. Oh, they gonna tear me up. I know they gonna tear me up about this. All the big homies, the New York dudes, they gonna tear me up. But like I said, we was out of tune, and Connecticut had their system in a way where getting in tune was gonna get you in a box. If you got a letter from anybody up north and they found that letter and it was coded, that alone, you could be in general population. You get that letter, now they sending you to Northern, and you're gonna be on lockdown for at least a year. You know what I mean? So it was like almost impossible to be in tune with what was going on. So I started my own lineup, the BTL, the Connecticut lineup, and I put myself at the top, which I already was, and I put four people under me. But I didn't make up like statuses or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? It started from with me. I had what they call 4 stars at the time. There's 5 stars, and then it go up and up a little bit. So I made other 4-star generals basically on my own. I just gave it to them. You know what I'm saying? And so they took me and the other 4 brothers on that lineup. There was another brother on that lineup who had a life sentence. I think he started working with the system. I think the same way they came to me and asked me, to squash the Latin King beef. This guy ended up squashing the Latin King beef when I left. I made him basically second in command, and I already told people when I went home, because I was going home, that he was gonna be he was gonna run the uh the whole Connecticut system. So I believe, just personally, when they shipped me out, they kept him because he had 60 years. He was supposed to be on that bus with us. It was me, then him, and then it was three other dudes. They didn't take him. They took four other dudes, and then they shipped us all out to the feds. Every last one of us. And even then, I still had the least amount of time. It was Dutch from Hartford, Diamond, I forgot Diamond name, man. He was Lion Diamond. Everybody in Hartford knew Diamond. They said he had a sexual assault case on a minor or whatever, but we didn't know that at the time. But people from Hartford, they knew Diamond was he was a fighter. Like he was good with his hands. You know what I mean? Dutch from Hartford, um Black Rob from Stanford, Bridgeport area. Shout out to everybody, man. Shout out to Bream, my son Bream from Waterbury, Goonie B. Um, there's so many individuals, man. But just shout out to everybody that was my son Ghost, rest in peace. Marcus Mahoney from Bridgeport, K Tone, Shaq from Bridgeport. The list goes on and on. There was a lot of brothers that was putting on. And when I say that, I mean more or less with the police, because we was behind in Northern, we was in a box. So at that time we had more altercations with the police than other inmates, because you're all locked behind a cell. There's nothing you could really do. You know what I'm saying? So our thing really was with the police more than anything. You know what I'm saying? And there was a lot of brothers that lost eyes, that lost teeth, you know what I'm saying, with them police putting you in handcuffs and beating you and kicking you and all of that and doing you completely dirty. I'm not gonna lie, the only reason why I came out with my eyes and my teeth, it wasn't because I was a good fighter. I honestly believe, and an officer told me this, they felt like if they would have harmed me too much, that it would have been harder on the system. They felt like, you know what I mean? They used to go in there and they used to beat some brothers bad. And an officer told me, he said, "Man, you lucky." He said, I was handcuffed. They had kicked me, maced me and everything. And he was like, "Man, you lucky. I wanted to I wanted to bash your nuts inside your body." He said, "But they're protecting you. You're lucky. If it was up to me, you'd be unalived in here." He told me that. And I kind of peeped it a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But so yeah, so they kicked us out the system. Let me get to the story. So one night they came to my cell about 3 in the morning, woke me up. At the time, my name was Marcus Mahoney from Bridgeport. Rest in peace, my son Ghost. He was a white boy, but he was. I only made four people blood in my entire years of being blood. Only four people, only four. Two from my neighborhood. My son Bada Bing and my son Blaze. Those was the only two from my neighborhood that I brought home. And then when I went out to Connecticut, Shaq from Bridgeport and Marcus Mahoney, my son Ghost. Marcus Mahoney was a white boy. Everybody in Bridgeport knew him. He used to run around with another leader who started one of the Connecticut gangs, a guy by the name of Artie B. Artie B was a gangster from Bridgeport, and White Boy Ghost was like one of his little hitters. Everybody knew Ghost. He was a wild, get busy white boy. I could get into that too, how I brought him and Shaq up here. They were supposed to kill somebody. And if that individual's mom, they was coming one way to get the dude, and that individual's mom pulled up in the minivan. He jumped in the minivan. Had his mother been late that day, she would have lost her son, man. God forgive me, but these were some serious dudes, man. Shaq and Ghost. Rest in peace to both of them. But so yeah, he was my celly. So they come banging on my door, and they was like, "Yeah, pack up." And I'm like, "Pack up? I'm in Northern, man. You can't go. Not only am I in Northern, I'm in AS. I'm in administrative segregation. I got to do 18 months before I could even consider leaving this jail." So I'm like, pack up to go where? And they was like, "Yo, you leaving? You going out of state?" So I'm like, "Man, they trying to trick me. They about to bring me to the AP room and beat me up." So I'm like, "Man, I ain't going nowhere." So, Ghost jump on the vent. He yelling in the vent, telling all the homies, "Yo, suit up." Whatever we saying, whatever, you know, 2400, 2400. You know what I'm saying, on the tombstone, more or less ticks and fleas. You know. whatever the rhetoric was. And so all the homies get up, yo, Bucks was popping. Ooh. So the whole tears in the uproar now. So they turn on the lights. They in Northern they cut the lights down that night because everybody in their cell anyway. So they turned on all the lights. Now the whole unit is in the uproar. And I'm like, man, I ain't going nowhere. I'm about to eat a can. That means I'm about to get maced. You can mace me. We call it eating a can of mace. Because we say you're gonna have to waste a whole can because we became immune to mace. We got mace so much that a lot of us became immune to mace. As crazy as it sounds, but it's true. So I'm like, man, I'm about to eat a can. I ain't going nowhere. So we already wrapping up, preparing to fight with them or whatever. So they called the warden, and the warden literally came to my cell door. I never seen this guy before until the day I left. And he came in a robe, y'all. No exaggeration. This guy came in a robe and some house shoes. You know them house shoes that this house slippers that look like wingtip shoes. He came in that, and he was like, "Sir, you gotta go. You gotta go. It's the winter time." He had his robe on, and he was because most jails most times the warden lives on the grounds. And Northern, which is in Summers, was one of those jails. Like he lived on the grounds somewhere. So I ended up giving up. I went down. They drugged me to the bullpens or whatever. And when I went to the AP room, is when I saw the other homies. They came and got me last because they thought it was gonna be a struggle. So when I got there, I seen the four other homies, and I felt a little relief because I'm like, man, yeah, so they ain't gonna kill me. And they shipped all of us out, and we all went to Lewisburg. Now they were supposed to keep us all in Lewisburg together, but what had ended up happening was when we got to Lewisburg and dudes found out we was in Lewisburg. I guess the Bloods that was there or whatever, the Latin Kings, I don't know who, but they called me to SIS and they was like, look, y'all can't stay here. And we called Connecticut, and Connecticut advised us to separate y'all. So they gave us all federal numbers. We all ended up getting a number that was 045. 045 is like a Kansas number. It's a Midwest number. So mine was 045 16183. That was my number. 045 16183, I believe. Everybody else got 045 161 84. You know what I mean? 85, 86, 87. For the whole five of us, they all got numbers. Now, when I got to Leavenworth is when I realized that I had the number for Leavenworth. So I know that everybody got their number based off of me because I was the only one that went to Leavenworth. Everybody went somewhere else. One went to Terre Haute, one went to Long Park. We all went to penitentiaries. We all got spread out. And they sent me to Leavenworth, which is in Kansas. And 045 is a Kansas City number. They all had Kansas City numbers. Now, when I got to my destination, that 045 wasn't a good thing because it was like I didn't know at the time your federal number is actually your last three digits. The 045 represents where you got arrested at. So I had a Kansas City number and I'm from New York with a Connecticut case. So it looked bad, but I'll get into that later. So yeah, Leavenworth is a military. They got a military briggs now, but back then this was the penitentiary. They got a medium and I think they got a camp and stuff there now. But this was back when it was the pen. It was back when Leavenworth was the penitentiary. You see in movies, man. In movies they'd be like, yeah, he's doing life in Leavenworth, two life sentences in Leavenworth. Leavenworth in the 80s and the 70s was the worst pen you could go to. In 2000s, it was still bad. It was Beaumont, between Beaumont and Leavenworth was like the two worst joints you could be at. Like now it's Canaan and I think maybe Hazleton or whatever. But at this time, those was the two. It was Beaumont and it was Leavenworth. That's where they sent all the troublemakers. Like when you come out of Marion or you come out of ADX, most of the people who came out of them type of programs, them shoe programs, most of them went to Leavenworth. Everybody there, most of 90% of the population had came out the box. So so they came, so we sitting in Lewisburg, and they told me that they were separating us and they were sending us wherever they sending us, and then they began to move us. But this the crazy part. When I came back from the captain review, I came back first and I told everybody, and then they came and everybody had got their destinations, right? Now we sitting in the box, we in Lewisburg in the box. First of all, I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. Y'all can laugh at me, right? I was scared to death. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared to death. I had 2.5 years left. I had 2.5 in on 5 years. I only got 2.5 left. I was scared to death. So when I told the dudes, they was like, yo, what's happening? What's going on? I'm like, yeah, they sending me. So my man Diamond, he was my bunkie. Diamond from Hartford. So Diamond on the door talking to the niggas that's in the box, because they keep you in the box. So we in the box. We talking to the niggas on the tier. So Diamond telling the dudes where everybody going. Oh, this person going here. I'm going to Terre Hut. Boom, 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 boom. So everybody breaking it down, telling, oh yeah, you gonna be straight in Terre Hut. It's like that over there. It's like this. It's like this. They telling my other man, oh, you going where? You going? Oh yeah, nah, it's good over there. You straight. You know, talk to the homie so and so when you get there. Boom, 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 boom. So when the dude told him I was going to Leavenworth, they was like, he going where? And it was like Leavenworth. Now the dudes on the tier knew that I was the so-called big homie, and they was like, "Oh man, they trying to kill you, homie. They trying to kill you." Oh, it was a DC dude. They trying to kill you, Slim. Oh, they trying to jack you off, Mo. Oh man, Slim. I'm like, what? What you mean? I'm like, why they saying that? I'm trying not to sound scared, but I'm scared to death. I'm like, what you mean? They was like, man, bodies roll out of there every week, Slim. Man, man, they gonna kill you there, man. They kill bodies rolling. I'm like, oh man. Then right before I got there, I guess the Bloods had got into it with the Muslims, and the Bloods caught the bad end of that. When I got there, I kind of heard the story. The Bloods caught the bad end of that, right? So at this time, I don't know about the New York blood car and the blood car. All I know is I'm Blood, and I'm about to go where the Bloods is at. So it was like, man, they just killed the Blood over there, man. They done stabbed him all in his neck. Woo woo. So I'm like this, oh shit, man, what they done got me into, right? So when we get our phone call, man, I call my pops, I call my father. I'm like, yo, pops, man, yo, listen, man, call who you gotta call. Call Weathersfield. Weathersfield out in Connecticut is like um Albany in New York. That's like where all the main central jail stuff is at, right? So I'm like, man, call Weathersfield, man. Tell him, man, I got 2.5 years. Man, I'm 23, 20 years old, 23 years old, 22 years old. Man, pops, man, they talking about they gonna kill me. So he get to calling who he could call is to no avail, man. I had a cousin that worked in Weathersfield. Shout out to my cousin Pearl, right? So Pearl, she worked in Weathersfield, like she worked in the central office. By the time I called home, when because we was in the box for probably about a month. By the time I called home, man, and my pa, he said, man, listen, man, Cuzzo said that you got stabbings, you got two assaults on the officers, which I did have two assaults, but I didn't have no stab. Basically, one of the brothers had stabbed a police in the eye with a pen or a pencil. They wrote that like I did it. Um, when the brother Samurai fought with the police, they said that I gave him the hit. When Bebo fought with the police, every time somebody beat the police up, they would write me a shot. So they wrote me all these shots basically saying that I sanctioned these hits on the police. So now everything they saying, they made it look real good in order to put this package together to send me and these five brothers to the penitentiary. So he was like, man, Charlie, man, this is my pop. Man, Charlie, man, I don't know what to tell you, man. Just, hold it down, man. Hold it down. I'm like, man, these niggas about to kill me. Long story short, I'm in there scared to death. And then I'm gonna tell you the story, right? I'm sitting in the shoe one day. So we in the shoe. Everybody in the shoe in Lewisburg is there for, acting out. So this is the worst type of dudes to be around when you sitting in the shoe, because all these niggas done stabbed somebody. It was a dude in there for a homicide. I don't know if it happened at Lewisburg. Probably did. So man, we sitting in there and it's a white boy in the shower, right? This is maybe like after being there a couple weeks and shit. So I already knew the temperature, right? So I'm sitting in there like, damn, I got 2.5 left. They could have left me in Northern. I would have rather sat in the box for the rest of the 2.5 years. than what this shit sounded like it was about to be, right? So we sitting there and it's a dude in the shower and he was like, hey, hey, it was two white dudes. One was in the shower, one was in the cell talking to him while he in the shower. So the dude was like, hey, Jimmy. He's like, hey, what's up, Billy Bob? These white boys, right? I'm from New York. I done been up north. I don't know no tough, crazy white boys, right? So he called the other white dude. He was like, hey, Billy Bob. He was like, hey, what's up, Jimmy? He said, man, when you stabbed that dude in Beaumont, man, remember how you was stabbing him in Beaumont? He got the squealing. And I'm sitting there and it's like, yeah, he's like, man, and you got the stabbing him and stabbing him and stabbing him. And I could see pieces of his head coming up off the knife as you stabbing him. And he said, yeah, he said, man, the scratch marks is still on the ground to this day. He said, man, you stabbed that motherfucker so bad. The scratch marks from the blade is still in the floor to this day, man. I'm sitting there like, oh shit, man, this is where they about to send me. They about to send me around crackers like this. And they laughing. He laughing about how he killed the dude, and the dude laughing with him about how he killed him. And stories like this was commonplace. This was commonplace. So I'm sitting there like, oh man. So anyway, we all get shipped out. When I'm leaving Lewisburg, tap my screen, y'all. Tap, 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 tap. Like, subscribe, and share. I'm getting this out because I'm not going to be telling all these jail war stories. I just want to get this out, get all this stuff out in the next couple of weeks, right? So now it's time for me to get transferred. We all getting transferred out, right? So when you get transferred in the feds, you get on the bus, they ask you your name, and I can't remember if they tell you where they're going or they ask where you're going. I can't remember. So I'm leaving now. So I'm shackled, handcuffs. I get on the bus. Mind you, I'm 21, 22. Now, if you think I look young now, and I'm 47, imagine how I looked at 22 or 23, whatever. I can't remember which one I was. I look probably like I was 15. I'm not gonna lie. I look like I was 15. I looked like a kid for a real long time. You know what I'm saying? This last bid, when I got locked at 37, when I was 37, I still look 25. This last one, this shit done took some of my hair. Not all of it, but it took all of this right here, gave me man, this last one put a dent in a nigga. So at this time, I look like a kid. So I'm getting on the thing, I'm getting on the bus to get transferred out. And they called my name. It's Gibson. They said, where's he going? He looked at the paper. He looked at me. He looked at the paper again. He looked at me again. He just shook his head. He said, man, they say he going to Leavenworth. When he said that, the whole bus, everybody in the bus looked at me. And they look, and I see niggas like, "Tch." So I'm like, oh, shit, it's true. I'm scared to death, y'all. I'm like, man, I see dudes like, "Tch." Like they had that look like, glad it's you and not me. Like that type of look, right? So I'm like, man, so I don't go to the end of the bus. I'm walking up down the aisle. I go sit down, boom. I sit next to this dude in DC. I can't remember his name, but he was like, man, this dude had life. He was like, yeah, he said, yeah, I was there. He's like, man, listen, I was there. I can't remember. He maybe said about 10 years ago. He said, I was there. He said, listen, it ain't that serious, Slim. When you get there, just get you a knife. And if anything happened or whatever, just stab. Don't just protect yourself. Keep a knife on you at all times when you get there, and just stab. Once you stab a few people, they'll know not to play with you. And I'm in my head, I'm shaking my head, but in my mind, I'm like, nigga, stab a few people. I'm trying to go home. What are you talking about? I got 2.5 years left. But I ain't telling him that. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, this nigga's crazy. He just like, yo, when you get there, just start stabbing people and they'll respect you after a while. Like, nigga, I'm trying to go home. You talking about stabbing niggas, right? But see, all you young brothers that want to be in these gangs, this is what you prepare for. You know what I'm saying? This is what you prepare for. This is what they say, this is what you sign up for, right? And as much as I was hanging and banging, I was scared. Now I'm not gonna lie to you. It didn't turn out to be the way it was turned out to be. But even though when I was scared, they say a scared dude to unalive you quicker. I did a lot of things out of fear. I'm keeping it a real. A lot of people, you know, they might have jumped out there and did some kamikaze fighter pilot stuff and beat some people up or went to war with the police or whatever, whatever. And they'll take all the accolades and all the awards and all the acclaim that come with these acts of valor, right? So these acts of valor, they'll take all the acclaim and all the accommodations that come along with it, but they won't tell you that they was afraid. They didn't tell you they won't tell you they was operating in fear, and that's how they came out on top because they was afraid. I can tell you that. You know what I'm saying? I fight my pride every day. I pray every day to release pride from me, and I could keep it all the way 100. I was scared. You know what I'm saying? Like tap my screen, y'all. So I get there. Now I'm in the shoe, right? I done flew, whatever. Now I'm all the way in Leavenworth. And yo, this jail was different. When you got off the bus and you walked in there, the air was thick. Anybody who been in the penitentiary or any place like Rikers Island, it's a thickness in the air. Now that I'm spiritual, I really wholeheartedly believe that it be the spirit of misery. That the spirit of misery is what makes the air so thick. The air was thick, man, like smothering thick. You know what I'm saying? You could feel the despair. You could feel the death. You can feel it. You can feel it, y'all. I don't know how to explain it, but something in your spirit lets you know that this is a horrible place. It feels like a graveyard. Word to mother. Like you could feel it when you get there. So I go in and you gotta go to captain's review. This is they don't I heard they don't do this now, but whenever you got to a jail, they didn't just let you into the jail and on the yard. You had to go sit in a box and then you had to be reviewed and see if it was safe for you to even be there, right? So while I was on the bus, a brother told me, like, listen, in one of my travels, because you know, you take a bus to a plane to a bus to a plane, it's a lot of traveling in the feds. So on one of my travels, I was with somebody and they was like, listen, when you get there, there's a camp down the street. So you just tell them, hey, look, I only got 2.5 left to go home. Just send me to the camp, and they'll send you to the camp after like 6 months. So I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Just you short, man. You straight. You know, in jail, everybody always think they know something. They think they could tell you something to school you, right? And 90% of the shit be bullshit, but people always think they know something, right? So now I'm sitting in the box waiting to go to captain review. I'm in there with two dudes. One had a big this shit I never seen at this time. Now it's commonplace. I'm from New York City. We didn't used to tattoo our face in New York City. So I'm in there with two Crips, one from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and one from LA, right? This dude had a big 90 on his face. I've never seen a black person with a tattoo on their face, never mind one that big. He had a big 90 on his face, and then he had teardrops. I want to say 9 of them down the other side of his face. I can't remember which side was which. These are the niggas I'm in the shoe with. And the dude with the 90 on his face, he was there because he poked somebody up somewhere where he was at. And the other dude, he was from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I only remember he was from Tulsa, Oklahoma, because that's where he broke down the whole Black Wall Street thing and everything that happened in Tulsa. And I had read that before. So I'm actually got to meet somebody from Tulsa. The feds will do that to you. You'll meet people from places you only read about. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people that's not even from this country, you know what I mean? And that was one of the things that I remember. So while we in the shoe, they telling me like, yo, man, you got a little bit of time. Don't even come out the shoe. You might as well just sit here for 2.5 years or whatever, whatever. And one of the other dudes, he couldn't understand it, but he was like, man, I wouldn't want to do it, but I would if I was short like you, right? And it kind of made sense to me, right? Because I just did 2.5 in a box. So this other 2.5 ain't nothing. And you know, at that time, I probably had about 4 or 5 years in the box anyway, altogether. So I was kind of debating it, right? So I go to captain review. So they call you. This is where you sit in front of a panel of, correction officers, psychologists, whatever, and they try to SIS and they want to see if you actually deserve to be here or if you can get out, if you can walk this yard or not, right? So I go to captain review, I sit in a chair, and it's this whole panel of people sitting there, and they asking me all these questions, right? So while they asking me all these questions, I say, I raise my hand, I'm like, can I talk? They was like, yeah, what's up? I said, I only got 2.5 years left. You know what I'm saying? I just want to know if I stay out of trouble for 6 months, can y'all move me to the camp or whatever? Man, they start laughing. They all start laughing. And the dude said, listen here, young buck. He ain't know my name was Bucks, but he said, listen here, young buck. We gonna try to keep your little narrow ass alive for the next 6 months. How about that? We gonna try to keep you alive first. Man, when that dude said that, man, my heart dropped in my ass. I'm like, oh, this nigga said alive for is that bad here? And I swear it took everything in me not to say, yo, just keep me in the box, just put me in PC or whatever the case may be. It took everything for me not to say that. But I'm like, pride kicked in. The young bucks was like, man, fuck that. It is what it is. Like, so I go back to the shoe and I'm debating. I'm fighting with my own self because I got one nigga in the shoe, the one angel on one shoulder telling me to just stay in the shoe. Then I got the devil on the other side telling me, man, just go out there, man. Who want to be in the box for 2.5 years? It's sweet out there, whatever. So I'm fighting with myself. And I thought I was gonna stay, I'm not gonna lie. But when it came time for me to leave to go to population, I was like, man, I'm going to population, man. Win or lose, man. I'm going to see what it's about. You know what I mean? Because I was going to stay. I ain't gonna lie. Tap my screen, y'all. Tap my screen. So I'm like, man, fuck that. I'm going outside, man. I'm gonna see what's up, man. This y'all young boys. I'm telling y'all, this is how I be. Y'all might not feel. Y'all might just be like, y'all with whatever. But this is in a time where people were getting killed, and people are still getting unalived in the penitentiaries to this day. You know what I'm saying? So I go out there. Man, I go out there. I go to the first unit. I go to C to the bottom unit in C dorm. I'm in there. I move in there with a blood from Virginia. Nigga named Rock Top. Rock Top, I think. Rock, I can't remember. This dude looked like Cadillac Ty from Murder Inc. You know how black and ugly Cadillac Ty is? This nigga looked like Cadillac Ty, but he a brolic nigga, right? Brolic nigga from Virginia. So and he wasn't UBN, he wasn't a New York set. He was like some West Coast shit. But that's who was my first celly, right? And next door to me was a dude named Ali Mo from Sex Money Murder from Soundview. He was actually on the second indictment and he actually knew Pistol Pete personally. He was right next door to me. He had came like a few days before me. This ended up being my right hand man the whole time we was there. We both from the Bronx. We both 22, 23, and we both had short time. He was going home like a little bit right after me. He had been in a little longer than me. He was there for popping on the police. So me and him was like this from the time we met, right? So so I move in the cell with Rock Top. And while we in the unit, somebody was like, hey, they called me and Ali Mo was like, yo, y'all blood, right? We was like, yeah. They was like, yo, your homie is at the door for you. So we go all the way to the front of the unit. And when I get to the unit, it's the smooth black brother there. He got gold teeth in his mouth. He was from Cali. His name was Beam. His name was Baby Beam. And he was from Cali. He knew the rapper Yo-Yo. Wherever Yo-Yo from is where he from. He actually knew Yo-Yo person. They said he had Rolls Royces out there and all of that. It's this dude, but he was smooth. He wasn't like no Cali nigga. Like most Cali niggas, to me, they was more country. This nigga was like a smooth nigga. He had like a New York type of swag to him. The brother named Beam. I don't know where he at, but if y'all know him, shout out to Beam. So we pull up. So he was like, yo, where y'all from? Y'all blood? We like, yeah. So as soon as he heard the accent, he was like, oh, y'all from New York? We like, yeah, we from New York. He said, so y'all want to be on New York time or y'all gonna be on blood time? So me at the time, I'm super blood. So I'm like, man, we on blood time, man. I'm blood. He was like, nah, I'm saying that because it's most of y'all from New York. It's New Yorkers here. So you know what I'm saying? You could choose to be on New York time and not on blood time. So in my mind, I'm like, what you mean not on blood time? I'm like, man, I'm on blood time. So he start laughing. In his mind, like, man, these stupid young niggas, they don't know how shit goes. So he laughed. He was like, all right, young blood, just relax. Homie from New York gonna come holler at y'all in a little while or whatever. He still gave us some food, gave us the stuff that we needed or whatever. He gave us a care package or whatever the case may be. He asked us about that paperwork, and he said that I forgot to leave that part out. He handed the thing. He said, "Now, don't take these bags if y'all paperwork ain't right." Now, mind you, I just came to the fest, so I don't know what the fuck he talking about. I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Yeah, your paperwork. You gotta make sure y'all straight. Don't take these bags if y'all not straight." It's like, as far as what? It's like snitch, like, basically if y'all snitches. So we like, nah, me and Mo both like, hell no, we ain't no snitch. He's like, all right, he gave us the bags, we spin off. Oh, so he said, yeah, your homie, B More, Lil G, he's upstairs. I was like, Lil G. He's like, yeah, he OG Mac, dude, OG Mac who started Blood. I was like, yeah, he's like, he from OG Mac block. And I'm like, G, like Gary? He was short like this. I'm gonna describe it. He was like, yeah. I'm like, word, that nigga upstairs. I was like, yeah. I was like, yo, that's my homie. Boom, 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 whatever the case may be, right? So he was like, yeah, yeah, he right upstairs. So sure enough, he must have went upstairs and told son or sent word to son because they wasn't even in the same unit at the time. He came from a whole nother side of the jail. Once I figured out, he just his weight was up, like he could move around how he was moving around. You know what I'm saying? He came from a whole nother side of the jail, so he must have sent word to Lil G. So Lil G came on the next rec move. G sent somebody, yo, tell the homies to come. So me and Ali Mo went. And as I'm walking to this dude, do you imagine being all the way in Leavenworth, Kansas? We all the way in Kansas, a whole nother side of America. And to see somebody from the South Bronx, to see somebody from the Bronx, not only just from the Bronx, but a dude you actually know. Like this dude was like, it was like Jesus when I saw. I was so happy to see a nigga that I knew. You know what I'm saying? It was like he had a glow around him. I wanted to kiss him. Cause I'm like, yeah, I'm straight. I ain't got no, you know what I mean? I got somebody to hold me down, you know what I'm saying? First, you was scared to walk into the prison. Yeah, I was scared to walk into the prison. Which one I could have pretended and be like, yeah, I went when I'm keeping it a bean. Yeah, I was scared. So I walks in, he comes in the unit. He was like, "Yo, boom, boom, boom." Now, mind you, let me get some history on Lil G. Lil G used to run around with OG Mac. Now, when I gave the OG Mac story, my interpretations of when I met OG Mac, despite of what Mel Loss or L Lamus, whatever these dudes say, I gave y'all my interpretations when I met OG Mac, and I was around him for the year and some change. I was around him. So you understand what I'm saying? So this brother, Lil G, B More, was the dude who actually introduced me to OG Mac. You understand what I'm saying? So it was significant because everybody in the jail knew that he was OG Mac's co-defendant, the dude who started Blood in New York. It's just coincidentally enough that I was actually running around with this particular dude, and this actually helped me come down the road. I'm gonna get to that. So G takes me around to all the homies. He introduced me to all the dudes from New York, and he tells us, like, listen, y'all gonna be on New York time. But I'm like, nigga, we blood. We supposed to be on blood time. He was like, listen, it's different here. It's me and four other homies that's blood. All the New York bloods that's here, we on New York time. We not on blood time. And I was like, but why we not on blood time if we blood? I want to be with the homies. Like, I don't want to be basically like not jacking my flag. And he was like, nah, we still blood, but we just not on blood time. We on New York time. And he said the reason being was that a lot the Cali Bloods, from what they saw, and I ended up kind of seeing this to be true, the Cali Bloods controlled the blood car period, right? And they did have this thing where like if a blood got into it, if you wasn't from Cali, then they would more than likely punish you or sanction you. Then the whole blood car go to war. Then opposed to if somebody from Cali got into it, the whole car would move. You know what I mean? They ran the car like on some real Cali time, and they would use whoever they could use that wasn't from Cali because there was a bunch of bloods from um Oklahoma, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, all of that stuff is blood and Crips. You got GDs and Vice Lords too, but a lot of those Bloods and Crips, there was hundreds. Like there was times where they would have like the blood picnic or cookout. The blood car was probably only like 60 of them niggas, 40, 50 of them at best. But when they had these picnics, you'll see 200 bloods outside because all the Midwest bloods, you know what I'm saying? They didn't, all the Texas bloods and Midwest bloods and all of them dudes, they wasn't in the blood car. They was on Texas time. Everybody that was with from somewhere else, they was on the Cali car. There was no California car. The blood car was ran by California niggas and the Crip car was ran by California niggas. There was no regular neutral California, you know what I'm saying, car. All the Cali niggas was either Bloods or Crips. It was the same thing for Chicago. There wasn't no Chicago car. You know what I mean? Either you was GD or you was Vice Lord or you was the Peoples or you was Folk. There was no Chicago car. You understand what I'm saying? Because those two places, you either gang or gang. You know what I'm saying? Cali and Chicago, I could say that. Like they didn't have no regular car. Every nigga there from Chicago was in the gang, and every nigga from California that was there was in the gang. There was no separate car. They was the only place that was like that, to keep it a band. You know what I'm saying? And so the New York car was the New York Bloods was in the New York car. We wasn't in the Blood car. You know what I'm saying? So he broke this down to me, and because it was 6 or 7 of us from New York, I went with the homies. That was the homies. I wasn't gonna go be with the California Bloods, and there was no other New York niggas with the California Bloods. That didn't make sense. You know what I mean? And here this brother is who had rims and shit like that. So I said, all right, I'm gonna do what this was the big bro. So I'm gonna do what big bro doing. You know what I mean? And what made it actually good for me is that he knew me from the streets. So when I gave y'all the OG Mac interpretation of what was going on, I had somebody that was there, which was Little G, who could actually tell the rest of the New York car like who I was and what I was about. Now, when G met me, I was already on the run for 2 attempt murders. I had an attempt murder in the Bronx that I was running from, and I had two in Connecticut that I was running from. Like I told my story, we had control over our neighborhood, which is 240, which he knew of, and we was on 183rd and Creston, which he knew of. So he knew that we was, basically taking over blocks, and we was running around, we was busting our gun, we was wild little young boys. So he knew that. So that's who he promoted me to the rest of the homies. Like, yo, this my little man. Yo, he get busy. Yo, he did this, he did that. Woo, 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 woo. So he kind of set the stage for me with all the other New York dudes that was there. They looking at me like this little nigga, this little young little ass boy. And he was like, nah, the homie, nah, he was how they do. So that ended up helping me, right? Because I couldn't get my paperwork, y'all. I couldn't get my PSI because why? I didn't have a PSI. Why I didn't have a PSI? Because I didn't have a federal case. I didn't have a federal case, y'all. So now I had 30 days to get paperwork that I don't have because I didn't have a federal case. So I'm on the countdown. They pressing me to get this paperwork. And I'm like, yo, I don't have no paperwork. I didn't have no paperwork. So that was looking funny. The second thing that was looking funny, I had 5 years. Now, anybody who know in the federal system of 5K1, most of the time, the most popular amount of time to get when you get a 5K1 is what Sammy the Bull got. What Sammy the Bull got, y'all? 5 years. So I'm sitting in here telling these niggas I got 5 years, right? I don't got no paperwork because I'm saying I don't have a state case. And then to top it all off, I got this 045 number, which is a Kansas number. So niggas is like, yo, how do you have a Kansas number and you never been to Kansas? And I'm like, yo, I never been to Kansas. I don't know. This the number they gave me. Y'all, if y'all don't know how suspect this sounds super suspect. Super duper sus. I swear it was nothing but the creator's hand on me the whole time. The creator hand been on my life the whole time. So I wasn't supposed to make it out of here. Now, there was some New York dudes that never spoke to me. They would walk right by me. One, because I didn't have my paperwork. Two, I'm already young, right? I'm young. So they hate in my youth. They're gonna hate you because you're young. Even if I had a life sentence like most of the New York niggas did, I'm still young. I'm young with a life sentence, so they're gonna hate me because of that. So not only am I young, but I got 5 years. I'm supposed to go home in 2 years. And I'm saying, they knew I only had 5 years. So they know I'm going home any day now. I don't give a fuck if I had a fresh 5 years to these niggas. I look crazy. So I'm trying to explain this shit. I'm looking super duper crazy. I can't get my paperwork because there's no paperwork to get. You know what I'm saying? And it was niggas that never talked to me. So what had happened was finally they ended up me, Lil G, and John Cuff. John Cuff had the New York car. He was down with the preacher crew. John Cuff, we call him Frost, Jack Frost. He was the New York City housing cop that was chopping bodies up for preacher. He was my bunkie. He ended up becoming my bunkie, later on down the road. But he kind of had the New York car. So the three of us went to the lieutenant's office, the captain office, to find out why I was here because brothers was like, We heard of people getting transferred from Connecticut and Jersey doing interstate compacts, which is a state inmate who gets sent to the penitentiary because they're a problem. They say, yeah, we heard of that happening, but nigga, you got 5 years. How the fuck did that happen to you? And you all little and young, you couldn't have caused that much chaos to where you got kicked out of the state. I'm like, yo, I don't know. They kicked me out of the state. So it didn't look good. You know what I'm saying? It looked like I might have been like, a secret agent or something like that. But if it was, they could have gave me a New York number to make it look good and made some fake paperwork. If that was the case, right? So I don't have no paperwork. I got a number I can't explain. And I only got 5 years talking about I got kicked out of the state of Connecticut. How the fuck you get kicked out of the state of Connecticut? Your little young ass, right? So finally they took me to the because at that time you couldn't even go to the counselor's office or to medical by yourself. You had to have an escort, right? Because people would think you was telling, they would stab you. So you had to have somebody, walk with you. So the three of us goes to the captain's office, right? And this is where Connecticut did me a favor. When we go to the captain office, the captain is there, the secretary's there. She go on the computer. She looks at the computer. She calls the captain over. He looks, and they're both like, they look at me, look back at the screen. He says something. She types some more. They look at me, look back at the screen, and they said, he's supposed to be here. He got kicked out. He's supposed to be here." So he's like, "Well, what does that mean?" So she was like, permission to show?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't care." She turning around and she got the red in it, and me and G standing there, and they showing what it said, man. It said two assaults on the staff. I did have two assaults on the CO. It said two assaults on the staff, four gang sanctioned stabbings on the staff, uh, exciting riots. I sent people to get cut. It said I was figured out a way to get paperwork into the system, and I was turning people blood at an alarming rate, that I had took control over their supermax. Man, they doctored this thing up, so because they have to doctor it up like that in order to kick you out the state. So they gotta doctor it up. A lot of it was embellished. Like, a lot of it wasn't even real. I did have two assaults on staff though. I did. But all the assaults they gave me from other inmates was other inmates basically being upset because like I told y'all in the other live, most of these officers had got walked out because they were in a racist motorcycle gang. They were racist. So most of these assaults, if there was 22 assaults, these was 22 times these racist police did something to an inmate who just so happened to be blood, and he beat one of them up. Or during the cell extraction, when they coming in, an officer jaw might have got broke, or the officer might have caught the bad end, and they was also doing that too, y'all. I gotta say that too. A lot of these assaults was felonious. When they would go in and do a cell extraction, they went in there with the mind to go out on workers' comp. So they would go in there and fall or get knocked over and go out on workers' comp for months. So they was using us. They would piss you off and upset you so they could come in there and beat you up. And then after they beat you up, they'll say you kicked him and he fell over, and he'll go out and work his comp for 6 months. This is kind of why when I got back to the system, while I was in the federal penitentiary, they was already indicting those officers. When I came back, they had all got fired. So a lot of that came to light when I was already gone. So they used a lot of those felonious ass assaults to put it on my jacket to make me look like I qualified to get kicked out of the state. But I did kind of qualify, not on the violence tip, but the fact that I had brothers, this cohesive unit. You know what I mean? And I was more of the pen is mightier than the sword. And I was using our numbers to manipulate the system. So that's what made me dangerous. It's the leadership that made me dangerous. It wasn't the actual violence. They just put a lot of violence around a little bit of violence and made it seem like something that it really wasn't. You know what I mean? So when the brothers saw that, that was kind of my pass, my rite of passage. Because now the brothers came out and they telling everybody like, "Yo, we saw this and we saw that." I ended up getting my paperwork because I couldn't get a PSI because I didn't have a PSI. I ended up getting my paperwork and let them read my paperwork. And at that time, I was in jail for a first-degree assault with a firearm and attempted murder with a firearm, right? But when you read my paperwork, which I told y'all in another live, when I told y'all when it's like, "Oh, Bucks is a snitch" and all of this, This bid that I was in was for 5 years for a shooting that I didn't do. Somebody jumped out my car, shot two individuals, you know what I'm saying? One of them told, and they charged me with that. I didn't tell on the individual who did that. You know what I'm saying? And that was the case that I was in prison for. So anybody who's reading my paperwork, you can tell clear as day that I didn't do it. You could tell. And when you read the interrogation and everything that happened, it shows like I'm a stand-up nigga. I'm like, yo, I don't know what you're talking about, this and this and that. It said I had on all red. It happened on Halloween. They believe it was a gang initiation. All of this shit was in my paperwork. So that added to the man, the myth, the legend, right? It did, because the shooting happened on Halloween. It said I had on all red. I had on a bulletproof vest. I had a red flag under a red hat with the sleeves, the what's the baseball team with the C? The Cardinals. I had a red Cardinals with the C slash through the Cardinals, red bandana under that, red bandana on my wrist, bulletproof, green bulletproof vest on. It looked like a whole bunch of, you know what I mean? So I'm about to block this person. Hold on, y'all. You're doing too much. How you block this person? Channel activity. I'm trying to block that person. But anyway, so now I'm straight because they done read my paperwork and say I got all these assaults on the police, gang sanctioned stabbings, gang order hits, all this shit they doctored up. And mind you, I did have at that time, before I went to Northern for the gang stuff, I did have a lot of fights though. I was young, and I'll get into that later. I had a real bad spirit of anger. So I had already before Northern, I had already been a Northern for chronic discipline. I had already been a Walker for chronic discipline. I've been in and out of chronic discipline. That whole, if you have 3 fights in a 2 month span and you go and get locked down, I qualify for that all the time. You know what I mean? I was real violent when I was young, but I was raised like that. Coming up on Weeks Avenue, my grandmother made me fight, and we fought a lot. You know what I mean? So violence, this is what I'm saying when people, glorify violence and stuff like that. Like, some people have a spirit of anger, a spirit of violence on them. So violence is like second nature. You know what I mean? But it don't make me any less scared when I was enacting these acts of violence. It didn't make me any less scared. You know what I mean? And I would, out of a will for survival, my survival mode would kick in, and I was taught by my grandmother to defend yourself. Somebody put their hands on you, you hit them back. That's what she taught us. And if they too big, you pick up something and bust them upside their head. Yeah, a woman taught me that. My grandmother didn't allow you to be no punk. So I was raised to be, Lord God bless her soul, and I'm not blaming her, but we was kind of raised to be, violent. And she say boys, or they boys. That was just okay to pop off, right? And even if we got into a fight in school, all we had to do was say the dude hit us first, and we was justified. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? We was justified. Oh, they hit you first? All right, and she'll come right there and stand by your side. My baby was defending himself. You know what I mean? So I had a whole bunch of tickets for and shots for fights because I did a lot of fighting in jail. I would, you know what I mean? And sometimes I'd be wanting to escape. I'd rather been in the box than to be in population. I didn't like really being around people. I wasn't one of those dudes who took jail for all the amenities that came with jail, right? The TVs and the going in the yard and the congregating with people. I always was miserable in jail. You know what I'm saying? And anything would set me off, and I would pop off. I get tired of population, and the first little incident that happened, I would pop off to go to the box and get my little solitude. You know what I'm saying? I was weird like that. So I had a whole bunch of tickets that made what the state wrote up about me look like it was real. You know what I mean? So That's how I was able to rock for so long, you know what I'm saying, without the paperwork. And and I never had paperwork. And then look how it turned out, right? I know people gonna be in the comments. They should have found out and poked you up. They should have seen the future. I'm glad they couldn't. I'm glad they couldn't. But Leavenworth was an experience, man. I was there with a lot of dudes who are like famous in street law. You know what I mean? Like I said, my bunkie was Jack Frost, John Cuff, you know what I mean, who was down with the preacher crew. He was my bunkie. And it's crazy. I was gonna do a video on Africa Bambaataa today. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. But I had ended up going in the cell with John Cuff because his bunkie, a guy by the name of Derek, D Rabbit from Bronx River. That was his bunkie. Rabbit was an old tall bank robber from Bronx River. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy because Rabbit used to always joke. I don't know if Rabbit's still alive, man, but anybody from Bronx River who know Rabbit, you know, tall old school D, he used to always joke because I was rapping, right? Everybody in the penitentiary in Leavenworth knew me for rapping. Like I had the compound. Anybody who been to the pen, y'all know. Every state is big on sports. What state got the best basketball players, you know, football players, baseball players, fighting, stabbing, and rapping. Rapping is one of the categories. And me being from New York, I had the whole compound for the rapping stuff. And not only did I have the whole compound, everybody knew that Hell Rell was my man, and they knew Dipset. So everybody felt like, you know, I was going home to be a rapper and shit, right? So when I used to be rapping, D used to always come be like, man, you going home, you gonna be down with Dipset? And I'd be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. My son Hell Rell out there. Woo. I had the pictures and all of that. And plus Little G, B more, he knew Rel, so he used to tell people, yeah, man, them niggas, man, they was running around with Dipset, whatever the case may be, right? So Rabbit used to always be joking about, man, so you think you're gonna be a rapper? I was like, yeah, I'm going home to be a rapper. I'm gonna be Dipset. He's like, well, you know Bam gonna want them cheeks, right? I'm like, what? Man, you know Bambaataa gonna want them cheeks. I used to be like, yo, Rabbit, stop playing, man. He's like, I'm telling you, man, Bambaataa, Bam like them boys. Bam like them boys. And you know, Rabbit, if anybody know Derek, he's a funny dude. He a gangster, but he funny. You know, you got some gangsters who like to joke all the time, right? He used to joke all the time. This dude was a bunch of jokes. So he used to keep saying that. I used to get offended, like, yo, stop playing. I don't sex play, man. Stop playing like that, right? He's like, no, I'm serious. He was the first dude, and this was like oh 02, oh 03. He was the first dude that I heard say that Bambaataa did those things to kids. He was the first person. And I thought he was joking until I came home and I realized like how serious it was. Word to mother. You know, life comes full circles for people like me, man. The universe always give me things. I'm not a psychic or nothing like that, but the universe always talks to me. This is before I read about Aleister Crowley. This is before I understood, you know, the energy of hermaphroditus and how they use the energy of male and female, the feminine and masculine energy to manifest certain things and to get these spirits of creativity and all of that. This is before I knew any of that. And I'm gonna get into all of that, I promise y'all. But this ain't about that. But he was the first person to actually tell me that. So I'm just giving my Leavenworth experience, and he was one of the dudes that you know, I had the pleasure to be around, and he definitely told me about Bambaataa back then. Word to mother, real shit. And I just found it, you know, unbelievable. I also learned, you know, the sovereignty stuff there because there was a lot of Moors there. So I learned that the clearing your nationality stuff. I learned that there. You know what I'm saying? I didn't bring it into fruition. I didn't do nothing with it, but I learned that there as well. And I learned a lot of old New York history, you know, being in the cell with Frost, you know, John Cuff. And you know, I learned a lot of old school New York history being around Prince when Prince got there from Supreme Team. In fact, he might not admit it or not. He might, you know, but when Prince got there, I was one of the only New York dude that he walked the yard with. He didn't mess with a lot of New York dudes when he got there because the New York car didn't even want to let Prince out the shoe. When he got there, he had got into it. I can't remember what happened, but something happened with somebody from Queens named Big C. And I guess they blamed him for Big C getting unalived, right? So the New York car didn't want to let him out the shoe. But another reason why is because everywhere Prince went, he brought the bag. He was getting to a bag. And at the time, Frost was getting the bag. So that was going to be a conflict of interest because everybody knew Prince was there. He was going to come and he was going to start bringing the bag. So they didn't want to mess up the dynamics of what was going on. So they try to keep Prince in the shoe. They wasn't going to let him out. How he got out was he played the Muslim card, and at the time, the brother Mike Millen and Just they was down with Nicky Barnes. I think they was his nephews or son, his cousin. I can't remember. They had like a thing called the Red Apple Crew up in Boston. They was getting a lot of money, and Mike Millen, who was from New York, he was the imam. He was basically like the spiritual leader of the Muslims at the time, and the Muslims were strong. So Mike Millen went and got him out the shoe, but the New York car didn't want to let Prince out the shoe. So when Mike Millen went and got Prince out the shoe, when he got out the shoe, he ain't really fuck with the New York car like that. You know what I'm saying? He ain't really fuck with nobody. He played chess a lot and stuck to himself. But I was one of the only brothers that he actually walked the yard with every day because I was rapping and I was young and I was rapping. And at the time, he told me he had connections to Hurricane Chris. And I remember writing rhymes for Hurricane Chris. And he gave me his number. He told me to contact his wife. Her name was Sophia. I came home. I contacted Sophia a few times, but I went off to the races. I didn't do nothing that I said I was going to do. You know what I'm saying? And but yeah, I used to be with Prince every day on the yard, and that's when he told me, basically about being famous and being infamous, and he was break because I used to ask him, when I watched him and his nephews in the action, I mean not his nephew, Preem's son. When I watched it in the action, it kind of reminded me of me and him in the action because I was like 20 something at the time. You know what I'm saying? He probably was in his late 40s at the time, and I remember what I'm saying? Him being as calm and calculate as he is, he thinks before he speaks. I remember him being like that. And I used to ask him a lot of 50 Cent questions. You know what I'm saying? And I remember him telling me, like, I was like, yo, man, are you mad at 50 popping and you locked up? And he was like, nah. He said, because he's famous, but I'm infamous. And at the time, I didn't realize that infamous is famous, but in a negative light, both the same thing. And he broke that down to me. He's like, yeah, he's famous, but I'm infamous. You know what I'm saying? My life, I was able to take care of my family because of my life. And look, he's out there rapping about me. And he told me this thing. He was like, listen, the most important thing is to be able to tell your story before somebody else tells it. And that's one of the driving forces that put me when Rel was threatening to come to the internet with my story. It was what made me put my story out because I'm gonna tell you about me before somebody else tell you about me. You know what I'm saying? And I got that from Prince. And he also told me that he believed Preem could have been 50's father too. I ain't see him say that. Yeah, I don't be watching him, so I don't know if he ever said that or he admitted it. Because it seems to me like he's trying to get back next to 50. But I don't watch him enough to know if he ever admitted that. But he told me that. He said, "Yeah, we think Preem was messing with 50 moms. Like it was a little running joke, a little in-house, little secret thing." He was like, "Yeah, he could be his pops." He told me that out of his mouth. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I was there with Prince. Tuck was there in the shoe when I got there, so I never really got to meet him. You know what I mean? Blue was there, who's Sub Zero's uncle. And Blue, I was there when Sub Zero interviewed Frost and did an interview with Frost over the Jack John Cuff. I was actually his bunkie when they did the whole interview and they called Ty Guns and got Ty Guns in the interview. I was there when all of that happened. But Blue was there. Shy Born, one of the first 9 borns from Brooklyn, he was there. Booby from the Booby Boys, he was there. I played chess with him one time. He was an excellent chess player. I was there with him. Ra- uh, uh, Randy Love, that was getting money in DC from New York. He was there. Football was there from DC. It was a lot of DC dudes that was there. Um, D Demo, Monk, Brick from DC. All these dudes went home. These was dudes who had life sentences that was there. And DC get a bad rep in the spot, right? But when we was there, because we was in, Kansas, we was outnumbered, being from the East Coast. So the DC car and the New York car was kind of close in this particular spot because we was in the Midwest. You know what I'm saying? So we rock with the DC dudes, and people say what they want about them dudes. A lot of them dudes do be doing gay stuff, but a lot of them dudes do get busy. They do. And they had their foot on a lot of people's neck, even in New York car. I'm keeping it 100. You know what I'm saying? Frost, John Cuff, the gangster who had control over the New York car, when he was getting that package, there was a dude named Demo. Demo ended up going home from DC off that being younger than 25. But Demo was a gangster. When Frost used to get off that visit, Demo used to go right up in there and go right up in his butt and take that package. And this was a dude who was extorting half of Harlem, half of the Bronx, you know, but he was in the pen. When he got off that visiting floor, D Demo went up in there and he had to break bread. Demo was a dude I seen have two knives and throw somebody a knife and tell them come upstairs and let's go have a knife fight. This the type of dude Demo was from what's the name? You know what I mean? So there was a lot of gangsters there. Shout out to my son Anthony Graham, man. My son Prime Time from DC, man. Shout out to Prime Time, his brother Al and shit, man. Shout out to them. Um, the twins was there. It was a lot of dudes there, man. I said I was before I was there with convertible. I mean, not convertible, but Nate Doctor from Louisiana. This dude has 6 life sentences. At the time, Prince has 6 life sentences. No, Nate Doctor had 11 life sentences. Prince has 6 life sentences. There was people there that had this type of time, y'all. You know what I'm saying? There was people there that had this type of time, y'all. And now you kind of see why dudes get 6 life sentences and 11 life sentences. Because look, Prince gave his time back and he's actually out. When I left him, he had 6 life sentences and he ended up coming home. So listen, man, I'm gonna conclude my Leavenworth Penitentiary story. Um, I think I already told y'all the story about how when I had 6 months left, we got into it with the white boys, and there was almost a big feud on the yard. And yeah, I had less than 6 months left, and somebody from New York ended up getting into it on the baseball field with one of the white boys, and he threw a frank at the white boy, you know. And we almost went to war behind that. And here I was going home in less than 6 months. They ended up squashing it, but I never forget that day. I was in the shower, and I had a bad habit of taking showers, being too long in the shower. Everybody used to tell me I take too long in the shower. You know what I mean? Because I used to be in there like 10, 15 minutes, maybe longer sometimes. And dudes always tell me, yo, you take too long in the shower. So I remember one night I'm in the shower taking long, like I normally do. And at night, it be loud. I mean, loud, loud. You know how anybody been to prison, you know how loud it would be when you got 100 people in a unit. And this was one of those units. It had probably more than 100 people in the unit. So it'd be loud. And I remember it being loud while I'm in the shower. And then as I'm showering, I don't notice that it's not loud anymore. I didn't notice till I turned the water off. And when I turned the water off, and it goes from like a stadium loudness till you turn the water off, and it was like this. And when it was like that, in a place that got 100 and something people in it, and you turn the water off in the shower and you hear, man, I threw my clothes on real quick and I came out, and that's when you seen it. All the white boys was over here, the Mexicans was over here, the DCs was on the top tier. And as soon as I came out, they was like, yo, your homies got into it on the yard. And I broke this story down already somewhere in one of these lives or whatever. And yeah, it almost was bad. So I had to go out to the yard, and I'm out there with this little half a scissor. You know those barbershop scissors, some shiny, skinny scissors with the one of them got a ring at the bottom. Well, I had that. I had half of that. That was my knife, right? I get to the yard, they give me that. And we all on one side, couple DC dudes in a New York car and some Muslims. And then because the E-man at the time was from New York. So he was gonna go with the New York car. So that kind of like gave us some strength because now we got all the Muslims with us too, right? So we sitting out there's about 200 blacks on this side, about 200 whites on that side, and brothers had a little talk and whatever. They squashed whatever they had to squash. But if they ain't squashed it, we'd end up having to stab each other to death. But luckily they squashed it. So as I got into the whole Connecticut blood thing and how I helped form the UBN out there, and now I get into this penitentiary story, or whatever the case may be, I just want y'all to know that this is what I knew I was facing when I got locked back up. And yes, this is what I knew I was facing when I got out in 2015 and I decided to still sell heroin in Connecticut and Pennsylvania. You know what I'm saying? I knew very well because I was in there with a bunch of dudes that had life sentences for less than the shit that I did. I was in there listening to dudes telling me how they got a life sentence for shit that I got away with. Some of the people was in there for less. They did less than I did with 30 years and 50 years in the penitentiary. So I knew very well what I was facing time-wise, and I knew that when I went back to the penitentiary, I was going back to somewhere like Leavenworth, where I witnessed 2 deaths in the little 2 years that I was there, when I witnessed multiple stabbings and people get their head bashed in with a bocce ball. I done seen a bunch of death and stuff like that. So I knew what I was going back to. And I should have, you know, hung up my Timberland boots and hung up my flag back in 2015 when I got off of Rikers Island, when I stopped banging on Rikers Island. I supposed to came home and got a square job, but I didn't. I went back to selling heroin. So when people say, "Oh, you found God when you got locked up," nah, I actually found God in 2012. But when I came home, I still was selling drugs. And my stinking thinking, I was like, as long as I'm not robbing and shooting people, selling drugs ain't that bad. I'm telling you how I thought. It took a long time to change my mind frame and to change my spirit. A lot of praying and a lot of meditations. And when they put them handcuffs on me, I didn't find God. I found the next FBI agent so I could get myself out of my situation because I was scared. I was scared and I was a horrible person. And I chose myself, just like we choose ourselves every day in the streets. We choose ourselves. You know what I'm saying? To do crime and to sell crack to people, mothers, and to sell crack in our neighborhood and to take food out of the babies' mouths when we doing what we doing. You know what I'm saying? We don't think about that woman when she come with uh that PlayStation or that Nintendo. We don't think about them kids when she come with that money that she done, sold her body for, or we don't think about them children. We never think about that. You know what I'm saying? So I was that selfish. The same selfish dude when, a guy get locked up and dudes is thinking, oh, he ain't coming home soon. And they think about his baby mother and that big old booty, and you can't wait for her to walk down that block. You know what I'm saying? Need some money for some milk or some bread. You ain't gonna look out on the strength for him. You looking out because you trying to hit it. You know he just got a fresh bid. You know what I'm saying? Same person. And what we do as a community is we highlight and we praise the gangster that go do the life sentence, and we frown upon the rat, but they're the same side of the same coin, two different sides of the same coin. They actually the same side. If being black, a good black man who take care of his children is on one side, while a snitch and a gangster, the killer, big homie, they on the same side of the coin. They ain't on a different side. They the same thing. A selfish nigga, a selfish, ignorant nigga that will do anything to anybody. It's the same shit. But I'm gonna try to look at some of these comments. Please remember when Jesus returns, he's going to unalive all of us in the most gruesome. Man, I rebuke that in the name of Christ. I rebuke that. I rebuke that. I rebuke that. I rebuke all of it. Everything you talking, beloved. Do I know Butter from New London? I knew Butter, the one that passed away. He wasn't from New London, no. He was from the Bronx. The one that I knew. He probably owned a rooftop. I don't know. Harlem Preacher Crew got him. But I appreciate y'all. Tap my screen, like and subscribe, y'all. Tap my screen, y'all. Tap my screen, like and subscribe. I'm off this for now. I'll probably come back in a few more days. I got a couple videos. Yeah, his brother's Hank. Yeah, I know Butter. Rest in peace to my son Butter and my son Hank. Yeah, I know them. I used to be out in New London with them back in the days. The BG you was talking about was from Queens. Dark skin homie from Farmers. Yeah, yeah, BG. He was the Mac. I was on the island with him in 2023. He was the Big Mac. I think they parked him though. I knew Xavier. What Xavier from Bronx River? I heard of him. I don't know him though. Oh, you mean Xavier from Bloods have always been the best mentors on real life shit prison I've met. Yeah, X from Bronx River. Nah, I don't know X though. I heard of him though. Yeah, X got 50 years. Yeah, I heard of him. I don't know him though. Have a good night. Enjoy listening from Dallas, Texas. Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you, Dallas. Dallas in the building, y'all. Xavier from Bronx River. Yeah, I remember him. It's New London, mostly white town. Yeah, it's mostly white, but it's black people out there. I have family out there. That's how I ended up out there. New London is a town. It has Groton has a Navy base. So my grandfather, he came out, he went out there basically in the Navy. A lot of people go out there, end up out there because of the Navy. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how you get a lot of Detroit people and people from Chicago out there. Not now, but back in the 80s and 70s and 80s and 60s. New London is a port town. And anywhere that you have a Navy base, you're gonna have, prostitution and people from other places because it's a Navy base out there. So that's why there's a lot of out of towners out there. And I was out there for a minute because I had family out there. He in ADX right now. Wow. Yeah, nah, X, I heard of X though. I don't know him personally. Powerful brother. But I appreciate y'all. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I hit y'all. I'll probably get back on here tomorrow at like 11, between 10 and 11. I'll be back on here. Tomorrow, I think I'm gonna change the tone and I'm gonna lead more into what I wanted to lead into. And I want to break down some things for y'all. I'm about to put up this Africa Bambaataa video to lead into what I want to lead into because I'm here to teach, not preach. And I want to teach a few things to the collective, man, and plant some things in y'all spirit. You know what I mean? And I appreciate y'all. And I thank y'all. Like I always say, it's free to be me. You got to sprint to pretend. Peace, peace, peace. Love and light to the collective, y'all. Later.